All right, guys, welcome back. We're going to be going over time frames. And before we dive into time frames, there's something that you have to understand. If there's an algorithm that runs the market, then something has to be consistent. Something has to happen over and over and over again. That means that there's a strong low, for example, being formed on a seconds time frame, 1 minute, 5 minute, 18-hour, 2-hour, 3-hour, 4-hour, because the market is fractal. There's liquidity being formed on a seconds time frame because liquidity is also fractal. So if the market is fractal, then what time frame do we use? I'll be lying to you if I tell you that we're only going to use a certain time frame. We use all of them because the market is fractal. The algorithm is not programmed to only do a strong low on the 1 hour. It's not only programmed to do it on the 1 minute. It's programmed to do it on every single time frame. Now, of course, we're not going to use every single time frame. We're going to use the time frames that I'm about to mention here. But you need to know this though, because it's very important. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the course, the market is fractal. That's why you don't see a strong low on the 1 hour, but you see it, let's say on the 15 minute. It's fractal. I'm not going to lie to you and say that we have a strict set of time frames. We don't. We have quite a few time frames that we're going to be using going back and forward because the market is fractal. So you need to understand this. It's very important. So the time frames that we're going to be using are the seconds, the 1 minute, the 5 minute, 15, 30, 1 hour, 4 hour, daily, weekly, and monthly. These are the time frames that we're going to be using. All right. Now, there is times where you might not see anything on the 15 or the 30, but maybe there's something in between. I don't use the time frames in between. I don't recommend that you use them either, at least not right now, since you're new to this. Stick to these time frames right here. These are the time frames that you're going to use with everything that you have learned so far. All right. Now, these time frames have a different set of rules. So, for example, let's get this other color over here. From the 1 hour and below, I consider these lower time frames. And from the 1 hour and above, or let's say 4 hour and above, these are higher time frames. The higher time frames are important. They are the key to the way that we trade. That's why you hear me say higher time frame a lot. Now, the higher time frames have an important rule. We have to check the daily candle close every day. Once the daily candle close, we have to see how the daily candle close. Now, why is that? Because remember, we use the higher time frames also as POIs. We need to see what's happening on the daily. So on the daily, for example, not only do we care about the structure on the daily, we also care about the daily candle closures because that's a daily candle. And this wick right here, let's say the daily candle close like this, and then there's a wick. That wick is an unmitigated wick. The daily close with an unmitigated wick. So that for us is important. That'll be a POI. Now the weekly. The weekly, the only thing you care about in the weekly are two things. You want to know the most recent break of structure. You want to know the most recent break of structure on that time frame. So if it's the weekly, there's your BOS. And then you want to know where can it come into? Where can it come into? All right. And where is it coming from? So that means you have to check the weekly candle closure every week to see what happened. Let's say the weekly candle came into here and then left the big wick. That can be used as a point of interest. We use every time frame. And then the monthly is checked at the end of every month. All right, on the monthly, we don't really care much about the structure, but we still want to know where's the monthly coming into, where it's reacting from, right? And like I just said, where can it come into? That's it. And if you're able to see the structure on the monthly clear, then mark it up. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to hurt you to mark up the zones of these higher time frames. It won't hurt you. Just do it. It will help you train the eye. You know, you're still a beginner, you're still learning, so you want to mark up those areas. Don't try to have a perfect line like I do because you're not there yet. You will, but just not yet. So if the 4 hour, if you have a 4 hour breaker, just draw the zone. That's a 4 hour high, but then you saw a 15-minute break, 15-minute range. Now, let's go back a bit. How can we confirm this low? Once we get a break on the opposite direction. So this confirms the range from A to B. So we know the range already. Coming to premium pricing, POI, liquidity, etc. Everything that you learned so far, right? Now, but in here, we also formed a 15-minute range. So here we have a 15-minute low being shared with a 4 hour low. Here we have a 15-minute range because it all happened on the 15-minute. The range formed the low and the high on the 15-minute. You didn't need to go lower because you saw it. It was clear as day. So you don't have to go lower. So that's a 15-minute range right here. So in other words, a lower time frame range inside of the higher time frame. So price went up, and then how do we enter? If this is the inducement, then how are we going to enter? We use the higher time frame POI. So let's say here we have a 4 hour order block. That's the POI. So then price taps in here, and then it goes. First target, obviously this. Because this is now feeding liquidity into this POI. It gave price a reason to come into here. If there was no internal liquidity, this gave it, fed it liquidity, it fed it stops. There's the buy stops right there. Gave it a reason to go in there. Comes in here. It comes here to the 15-minute, right? You can get a 15-minute strong high. Nothing wrong with that. The market's fractal, guys. Or it could be a 5